Okay, hi folks, I'm Dr. Denboer. Welcome to DBC. I feel very privileged that you've come on such an absolutely gorgeous day. So I will give you information that you will be able to use. It's news to use, as we like to say, and it's also revolutionary kind of news. There's change in the air, and it's change that I feel so privileged to tell you about. Because when I started here almost 30 years ago, it looked pretty bleak. I felt like a missionary here. There's one other doctor doing medicine like I did back then, and that was it for the entire Western Michigan state. My wife called me the O doctor, because as we were getting to know people in our church, so what does your husband do? Well, he practices natural medicine. He's a naturopathic doctor, and he also practices chiropractic medicine. Oh. Got it every time. Times have changed. Now when somebody asks me what I do, my wife will reply, well, he's fully certified in functional medicine, and he practices it through naturopathic medicine as well as chiropractic medicine, and you hear, cool. It's a totally different response today. And I'm still getting used to that. And I thought I'd never see that happen in my lifetime. Because when I started the practice of medicine as we practice it here, it was the time that the American Medical Association was taking the American Chiropractic Association as well as several naturopathic associations to court for doctors practicing fake medicine, essentially. Just a generation of doctors before me have been thrown in jail for practicing medicine this way. So you have to have some pretty tough skin. But you know what? Even back then, there was so much overwhelming evidence. We're going to cover some of these interesting things. So let the games begin. So a monumental shift is being forced on our healthcare system. What exactly is functional medicine? I have thought long and hard about this, and there's no easy way for me to say it. So here goes. It's molecular science meets systems biology meets biochemical individuality. I can tell you when functional medicine officially organized. It was in 1973 when they had a meeting of minds in specialists of all these at a symposium. I've got the pictures, black and white pictures of that meeting, and that's when the movement started. It's a whole systems approach, so all body systems, to create personalized precision medicine. And it's an optimization of function expressed as physiological, physical, emotional, and cognitive. So if someone comes to us with cognitive decline, which can be beginning Alzheimer's or outright Alzheimer's, I'm here to tell you, you can change that. You can reverse that. And I will show you the proof in some of the top tier medical journals. It's something that I've been privileged to witness for decades myself. So this change is monumental. It's taken a little bit of time, but it's happening. So the paradigm shift that's happening within healthcare is we're going from monotherapy, so let's say a statin drug to lower cholesterol, to multi-therapy. And that means looking at all the body systems and how they interconnect with each other and working on them. From pharmaceuticals to nutraceuticals. I had a patient today explain, I cannot believe how fast my cholesterol is coming down. I've never seen anything like it. And this patient has been around for a while. I had a medical doctor send me a letter 2 weeks ago saying exactly the same thing. A handwritten letter. You don't get too many of those anymore. Yeah? And so we've entered the era that nutraceuticals are outperforming pharmaceuticals. Wow. We go from acute care to chronic care. Functional medicine does not replace acute care. If you have a near-fatal heart attack, the emergency room is a good place to be. Keep the heart beating, keep the patient breathing, all the emergency know-how. We are so good at that. And I so celebrate that part of our healthcare system. But when it comes to chronic care, then they start talking about symptom management, don't they? And symptom management, to me, is not good enough. It's nowhere near optimization of health. Nowhere near it. We go from diagnosis to prognosis. In medicine, I've noticed the name of the game is the name. Figure out the name, and then they kind of drop you. Here's the drug that matches it, bye. And that is rather disheartening. Prognosis is wellness care. How do we optimize this? Can I climb out of this condition? And in most cases, yes, you can. From downstream medicine to upstream medicine. First heard this word about a quarter century ago, and I like it a lot. So downstream medicine means taking care of symptoms right now because they need to be taken care of. So if a patient has critically high blood pressure, it needs to be slapped down or the patient can stroke out, correct? This is a medical emergency. So that's downstream medicine. It's the after effect of many things that have happened before that. And we do worry about that, but right now let's take care of that blood pressure. So here's the blood pressure medication to alleviate that situation. Then you have to go upstream. What happened to this patient to make this happen? Figure it out. So that means background history, genetics, right? So family history. Has there been stressful events that could have created a hormone change? Have you eaten different? Did you have a physical event, like a fall, that could have actually affected your nervous system? And on it goes. And you start checking things out. That's upstream medicine. When you practice upstream medicine and you start practicing up here, then you have a positive effect all the way down. And guess what? It goes to other places of the body too. And it's really fun because other things start happening that the patient benefits from. And you get, oh, by the way, doc, I'm no longer doing this and this. Could that be connected? Yeah, absolutely. That's upstream medicine. You're treating so many things without you knowing it. A slight step back in time. The Lancet, one of the world's most renowned medical journals, in 1871, stated the advances in medical science during the present century have tended to produce an estrangement between the scientific cultivators and practitioners of medicine. Minute investigation into disease structures and a dispassionate study of the action of drugs have shown that advanced changes of structures are but little influenced by such remedies. The ideas and principles eventually lead to the alterations seen in the condition and may be summed up in the term functional medicine. That whenever we come to treat a case, to prescribe a drugs or a particular diet, rest or action, we should first consider what function of the body is improperly performing. 150 years ahead of their time. Change comes slow. It comes very slow. And it's not unique to just healthcare. I remember reading about Columbus, the one that, quote unquote, discovered America. He was an excellent Navy sailor. He would come back, with all his journeys, he only lost a handful of men to scurvy. The norm for these transatlantic voyages was 50% fatality rate. Absolutely horrible, and that was the norm. He had figured out a way to prevent it. It was taking dried fruits, vitamin C, along. It took the Navy, the sailors in general, 60 years to adapt that. Even though he had it documented, it was so well documented. It's not new, this happens. So why are things shifting all of a sudden? What's happening out there? Well, economics is a big one. I found some sobering statistics to show you. There's a lot of new discoveries. absolutely overwhelming evidence, and functional medicine gives hope. Let's cover some economics first. New England Journal of Medicine, 2017. So this is just a few months ago that this was published. Big article. Why do we spend more and get less from our present healthcare system? So it shows you that United States, and that chart, is dead last as far as our healthcare system goes, by far, while spending by far the most. So something is very broken here. You can see the top ones, Australia, United Kingdom, and the Netherlands, they are the top of the world. They spend less than half that we do on healthcare. So economics is a big driver. Our healthcare system is rapidly making us bankrupt as a nation. There's also some sobering statistics. Nearly 50% of cardiometabolic deaths attributed to suboptimal diet. We're talking just diet alone. We're not even talking exercise. That alone is responsible for 50% of the heart attacks and strokes that are out there. The Meyer Heart Center, that gorgeous state-of-the-art hospital that we have here, truly is a monument to our folly. It truly is. And I celebrate it being there. It needs to be there. And I'm proud of it being there. The fact that we attract top scientists. But still, it is a sign of our folly. Because so many of those patients' health issues could have been prevented easily. And if you go back just 1 century, statistically, heart disease made up only 2% of our death rate. Today, it is the top one. In just a century. There's also some very exciting new discoveries driving this change. Journal of American Medical Association, late last year, published that there's a new discovery in intestinal microbiome and disease connection. Recent, quote-unquote, evidence suggests that the intestinal microbiome may affect the probability of many major diseases, including diabetes and obesity. Each person has their own unique intestinal microbiome. And I really just smirked at that recent, because over 30 years ago, I had to make a pilot paper before I graduated from graduate school that was on leaky gut syndrome and the connection to rheumatoid arthritis. And evidence even back then was overwhelming. So it's not so recent, but they are rediscovering it. And currently there's more than 300 ongoing studies in big medical centers on this whole phenomena in the United States alone. Overall mortality can be reduced by 14%. So we're not talking any one disease specific, just by changing what we eat. Improved diet quality over 12 years was consistently associated with decreased risk of death of all causes. It also gives hope. A lifestyle intervention compared with standard drug care resulted in a change that was consistent with benefit. In other words, we got better results with just lifestyle changes with diabetics, and it benefited many other things. Journal of American Medical Association, again last year. You see how they're piling on with all these articles? And also, our National Institute of Health found that a fast mimicking diet, this is where you go on, it looks like a partial fast, and it's for 5 days, induces a stepwise expression of genes. In other words, genes that are being expressed badly now all of a sudden become friendly. And it can result in insulin-producing cells coming back alive. We've been able to prove this in humans now as well. It's not ready for publishing yet, but I've been privy to some of the details, that type 1 diabetics whose pancreas are no longer producing insulin, are insulin dependent, can go off of insulin by using this. Why? Because stem cells regenerate and you release a ton of them with a fast mimicking diet. It is not just with diabetes. We've seen this with Parkinson's. We've seen this with MS. We've seen this with Alzheimer's. We've seen this with cancers. We've seen this with autoimmune diseases in general. We are harnessing the body's ability to heal, and it is way beyond what pharmaceuticals can do. Way. So, Personalized diet and exercise, can they save us all? So, the idea that most human diseases are the result of a complex interplay between genes and environment is not new. Recent data have showed that the response to food is highly individualized, speaking to the need for a personalized approach. And we have found that. We have found, for example, that the one patient responds incredibly to this diet plan and the other one needs this one. And it is almost certainly due to what's happened in the previous life, so to speak, as well as genetics and how it interplays with our current environment. Right? If you are obese and you never exercise and you have an extremely stressful work environment, and I can go on and on and on, that's a totally different diet requirement than a professional athlete or triathletes, for instance, that all they do is work out. Right? The dietary requirements are totally different. With the one, we prescribe nutritional protocol as a change agent, whereas the other one is more as an optimizing agent. Folks, there's a big difference. And that's why one diet does not work for all, except to say, eat real food, probably a little less, okay? And watch how you eat the food, if possible, with loved ones, in a relaxed setting, not as a lot of us Americans do it. 60% of meals are done on the run, standing up or in a car. That's the norm. It's not healthy. So we're also seeing some publishing now by Dr. Dale Bredesen of reversal of cognitive decline in Alzheimer's disease. So I'm fully certified in the Bredesen protocol because I saw, when I listened to him speak on reversing Alzheimer's disease, he presented for me a system in what we were already doing. Because what we are doing is, whenever a patient with Alzheimer's disease comes in, you have to really do a very tight workup to figure out which holes in the roof are leaking, and then get as many of the holes plugged as possible so that the body can start reversing the destructive damage that it's doing to itself. He put a system into it. He started categorizing them, and then according to the categories put together protocols. It's extremely cool. He wrote a phenomenal book that just got published, The End of Alzheimer's. It's the first program to prevent and reverse cognitive decline, and he describes it in quite good detail. It's a little bit of a tough read, but it shows you a lot of the material actually that I had to go through to get certified in this. And honestly, when you look at that, you can apply that to many other things, many autoimmune diseases as well. Chronic disease, or just plain optimizing of health. Yeah, landmark study. It's published in 2016. He's published 3 other landmark studies since that are a lot larger, but this was the first one, so that's why I chose to put this one on the slide. It, to this day, is rocking the neurological world. They're bucking against this change. They're trying to find that one drug that will reverse Alzheimer's, but they will not find it because there's so many types of Alzheimer's out there. There's not one cause out there. There is not one cause out there. So, functional medicine, how it applies to you. So when a new patient comes to us, we try to categorize where their weak spots are and where their strong spots are. What's influencing them as a human being, and what's keeping them from being optimal as far as almost anything in life goes. So we measure inflammation, because it is the key driver behind most maladies. It drives almost anything, from recovery from a sports event to prognosis on cancer. Inflammation is key. It can be measured very accurately with what we call the in-body system for measuring. It is a new BIA system that we have here. We're the only one in the west part of Michigan here. It measures 160 different points of reference, each individual limb separately, truncal, liver fat. It just does all these things, and it tells us with great accuracy where inflammation is and why, among other things such as mitochondrial function, and I won't bore you with what it all does, but inflammation can be measured very well. With blood work, homocysteine is a really important one, and C-reactive protein is a really important one, and often does not get measured. Toxicity. Toxicity is a problem. Everybody is toxic to some degree. We live in a toxic environment. I just did an entire seminar on it. It was a bit of a depressing seminar because I was covering toxins from all over. What you try to do with common sense, without stressing about it too much, because stress is toxic, you try to reduce toxic exposure. Eat organic where you can. My brother and sister from the Netherlands are visiting right now, and my brother was saying, you know, I would never buy anything from Mexico because I don't know what their laws are regarding pesticides. They could be using a lot of things that are illegal. No one's checking up on it. I wouldn't risk my health on that. Right? So it's all these things. If you have had a well that's up in the Rockford area, you should be doing things to be extra clean to compensate for that. Right? Eat all organic. Get your mercury fillings removed. Don't expose yourself to the toxicity of a flu vaccine. There's so much stuff in there. And on and on and on I can go. That's a whole other seminar. So toxicity, it's not just the toxins themselves though. Because when we check heavy metals here, I'm shocked by how some people have high levels of toxicity and don't seem to be influenced by it. Now eventually they will be. We still do take care of it. But at that moment, they seem fine. Whereas others, I'm getting trace elements and they're all over the map. Cognitive decline, immune system problems, reactivity to everything. It is absolutely shocking. The individuality of our response to toxicity, and it has to do with how stressed our adrenals are. It has to do with how leaky our gut is, how our immune system is functioning in general, on and on. Microbiome is the other one that we consider. We do a complete digestive stool analysis on some people. Others, we just through palpatory findings and listening to the gut. Just acquired a new stethoscope that can enhance sounds 40-fold. It's an electronic stethoscope. So we can pick up things in the gut that we couldn't before, and listening to the gut and palpating the gut and asking the patient some embarrassing questions can get us quite far figuring out what the microbiome is. Even looking at the tongue, tongue diagnosis has always been really big in a lot of cultures, and you can see a lot of things on that. Microbiome, this controls 80% of our immune system. It's 50% of your hormone metabolism. It's 92% of your neurotransmitters. It is your second brain. Most neurological conditions are gut conditions, including behavioral disorders. There's very, very few exceptions. We have more bacteria growing in our body than we have cells. Bacteria outnumber us tenfold. We are barely human. We're just controlled by that. And it's shocking how they can control us. So we better be nice to them. Hormones. Are you depleted? Are they optimum? If you look at the range of normal in blood work, it's big enough to drive a Hummer through, folks. You want to have a range that's optimum. You don't want to be over here. You don't want to be over here. It is absolutely important. And I'll be presenting at some point what are optimum ranges. How do you interpret your blood work? That's really, really important for me because I get a lot of questions on that, and that'll be a good primer for you. That's coming down the line. So hormones, hormone depletion. So artificial menopause, surgical menopause, we know is a huge risk factor for things like Alzheimer's. Yeah? Hormone depletion stresses the adrenals. When adrenals get stressed, your reactivity to food can go up to tenfold that of the norm. So stressed adrenals, reactivity to food equals inflammation, equals obesity, and all kinds of wreckage strewn throughout the whole body. Right? You see, everything's connected. How could you look at it as just a one thing? It has a cascade of effects throughout the body. Sugar regulation is the other one we consider. 1/3 of teenagers that present to us are pre-diabetic or diabetic. And that's true nationwide. We have a sugar disease epidemic on our hands. It is either the leading or second leading cause of Alzheimer's alone. Sugar is unbelievably destructive. I got a taste of it out of the National Geographic of all things. 25 years or so ago, maybe it was 30, National Geographic for the first time ever published MRIs of the pharaohs and the kings and queens of Egypt from 4,000 or 5,000 years ago. as a physician, of course, this was hugely interesting to me, and I looked at their spines and at their joints and saw phenomenal amount of degenerative changes very early on in life. I go, last I checked, they were sitting on the throne most of the time, just waving their hand, do this and that and that. There's also, interestingly enough, MRIs from the workers that built the pyramid. And they were slaves, essentially. And they now were mummified there to take care of whatever. And I look at their MRIs, and they are beautiful, perfect joints, and they're older. So there goes the thing, and it was kind of heartening for me, because at that point I was already seeing a lot of patients, and I thought, oh no, my joints are going to wear out. It was a worry at that point, because you know, you hear it all the time, well, if you're on your knees as a carpenter a lot, you're going to wear out your knees and this and that. No, it's not a big factor what you do. I'm not saying it's not a factor, but it's not a big factor. Your diet and lifestyle have a profound effect on degenerative changes within the body. Because as the Bible says, they were living in the land flowing with milk and honey. Lots of sugars. Yeah, very destructive, extremely destructive. Whereas the workers, they had the Daniel plan going. Basically, eat plants was cheap, right? So the poor man's diet was the healthy diet, very non-inflammatory. So that was my first really aha moment when I saw the destructive effect of sugars even back then, because they didn't have the toxicity that we do and some of the other problems that we do. Undernourishment. Welcome to the food industry. We process our foods to such an extent that we have to put some artificial vitamins back in. And they're just mere distant cousins of the real vitamins. The body has a hard time utilizing them. Overcaloried, undernourished. We see nutritional damage, we see nutritional deficiencies in an absolute rampant way. It is, I could tell you some shocking things about that. I mean, just vitamin D alone. Kent County, 92% of us in the winter are deficient. That's just vitamin D. More than 60% of women at age 50 are magnesium deficient. I can just keep rolling out the statistics. And so undernourishment is a problem. Another reason that I love having a plant-based diet that is organic, multicolored, just going organic alone raises the nutritional content 2 to 3-fold in most plants. Yes, it's more expensive, but wow, what a bang for the buck. Plus it looks prettier. So the big game changers. The first one that I really was aware of, because I had to do, because I chose to do a paper on it, was on leaky gut syndrome. And about 30 years ago, that was exploding on the scene. We saw so much research on that, and its profound overall effect on the human body. That really led me into the journey called functional medicine. And when I speak at conventions, they introduce me as being the originator of North America's oldest functional medicine practice, and as well as the largest private practice. And that's kind of cool. I don't know if it's accurate, honestly, and it doesn't really matter. But it hasn't been around that long, what we do. It hasn't been around that long. But I'm telling you, that whole journey started with me learning about leaky gut syndrome from a Dr. Jeffrey Bland, who to this day is my mentor. Because he was discovering things about it and its profound systemic effect, and that's what led him to also form the Functional Medicine Institute, which now certifies doctors in a rigorous program where you have to pass the equivalent of many different medical boards in order to be able to incorporate it and smash it all together. The HPA-T axis is the other one that's really a huge player in your health. So hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal, and thyroid. Okay, so we often talk about thyroid problems, folks. There's never just a thyroid problem. Or adrenal fatigue, folks. It's never just adrenal fatigue, right? It's a system that talks together. And that's why, for instance, when I see patients who've been under long, prolonged stress, the adrenals have been stressed, the adrenals sit right here. That's why they have aches and pains there oftentimes. Very often you'll find small cysts in the thyroid at the same time. And you tell the patient that and they're shocked. And it's not shocking. It is all connected. So that is basically the symphony director of all your hormones, right there. Insulin resistance is the other one. That one got a lot of traction starting about 20 years ago. There's the, I don't know if anybody remembers Dr. Sears, but he published the 40-30-30 diet, where you had to be 40% carbs, 30% fats, 30% proteins, and that to him was, he identified high insulin levels as being very toxic, very inflammatory, behind a lot of diseases, and we had to try to start working it down. He was very correct. We now know the 40-30-30 is kind of suspect, because really it's the quality of the foods we eat more than the percentage, but at least it was a start, and I really applaud him for that. So insulin resistance is now present in probably about 40% of the patients that come in here. Okay, it is a major driver of disease. Also, the exercise revolution. If you're over 50, you don't remember too many joggers when we were growing up, do you? It was just not hip, it's not cool, just a few weird people were doing it. And now you drive along and you see joggers everywhere, right? We've become so aware of what exercise does for us, and just across the border here in Ontario, McGill University is just cranking out papers, it seems, weekly on the incredible effects that exercise has on health. It promotes good genetic expression, it slaps down the bad genes. One of my favorite ones is they were able to measure telomere length, which is a measurement of biological age, and found that with just 3 months of exercise, for non-exercisers mind you, 3 months of exercise reduces telomere length to what it was 18 years prior. So that person just lost 18 years biologically. How cool is that, right? And it just goes on and on. Germany just published this study on the severe mentally ill, severe depressed, to the point that they're hospital-bound, bed-bound, not functioning, and they put the one group on pharmaceuticals, the other groups on counseling, and the third group with a personal trainer. They had them exercise daily, and guess which one won, right? The exercise won. In fact, it outperformed the other two combined easily. Just exercise. So I can go on and on about how we've gotten smarter with exercise and all the differences that it can make in your body, but yeah, that's not what this whole seminar is about. And of course, the food revolution. We're now understanding what food does for us. I love the study that was just put out with a plate of hospital food versus just that kind of food. And we tagged them with markers so we could measure on the scan where it was going, and which ones went to inflammation and which one decreased inflammation. The healthy plate of hospital food, which included broccoli and all kinds of other things, promoted inflammation unbelievably, and it was immediate. Whereas just a pure farmer's market kind of a meal was so anti-inflammatory, and the scan is really startling when you see it. So food is medicine, it's strong medicine. So it can outperform so much. For example, let's just jump to the middle here, keto. Don and I are very busy working on a keto diet to make it healthy, because it's very difficult to make it healthy. It's not a permanent way of eating, it's a game changer. Okay? But keto alone will outperform most pharmaceuticals for changing someone. And it does it with so many different things. We are going to recommend that as a temporary thing, for example, for MS, Parkinson's, anything neurological. In 1927, the first study came out on it, 1927, on how that it could control seizures. Our autistic patients respond incredibly to this. Our athletes, when they have to lose that body fat and get the muscle mass going, this is a good way to go. Our professional athletes, it puts them in the zone and their performance goes up very dramatically. And I mean dramatically. The studies are astonishing. Even the reflex times, let's say a 100-meter dasher, the reflex times, because neurologically it's more on, because the keto bodies that gets produced from a high-fat diet, good fat diet, promotes just smoother functioning across the entire range of physiological functions in the body. So it can be a good change agent, but then you also have things like the fast mimicking diet that I talked about earlier that can do so many interesting things. Again, a change agent. When we do that, it's 5 days out of the month, 3 times. There's also something called intermittent fasting. It's what I do every Sunday. I skip breakfast and I have a nice lunch, and that's it for the day. So there's these longer 18-hour periods that there's no food, and the body just uses that as a reset. The gut resets itself, it gets a break, you get enhanced detoxification, and it's a very proven way to keep things healthy. Nourish is a program that we've designed over here along with Boot Camp, and Nourish is one of my very favorite programs because it's a maintenance program. It's how we should all eat. It's more like a Mediterranean diet done really healthy for today's society and today's stresses, and it by itself can also dramatically lower overall inflammation, and it's just very sustainable over time. Dawn is standing at the back, and if you have questions about any of these programs, make sure you hit her on that. Boot Camp is a little more radical, as your name implies, and that is a change agent for patients with food addictions. They need to lose weight, they need to get out of the inflammation zone, and they need to do it now. So it's a very rigorous 3-month program, and they come out of it totally reformed. It's such a game changer. This is something when many other things have been tried and nothing's worked, and that's what we do, and wow, it's just fun to see. So you can see there's many different ways of eating, but notice I keep on saying game changer, okay? So there's a special circumstance, and because you have a special circumstance, you got to do special things to correct it. Because most people think that, well, I'm just going to eat better. At that point, that's not good enough anymore. It just slows down the progression of the disease at that point. You've got to do something up and above and beyond to reverse it. And that's what these programs are for. So there's a tremendous amount of nutraceutical advancements also. Like I said earlier, nutraceuticals often outperform pharmaceuticals at this point. And detox to this day remains controversial within the medical field, and why I don't know. Because a product like Sulfuriclear, which has a lot of concentrated vegetable extracts in it, has been known to increase detoxification pathways by 87% in just 36 hours. And we're not just increasing detoxification here, folks. What we're doing is also restoring your ability to detoxify if it's been damaged by too much alcohol, refined food, food allergies, stresses, who knows what. Because when you're done with using that, you still have a liver and kidney function that's much above than what it was before. Glutaclear is another one that we use with weight loss, and because fat stores pesticides and other toxins like that, and the body doesn't like to get rid of the fat at that point because it can be very harmful to the body. I had a patient come in today that did a fast unbeknownst to me, and did it just in a way that I wasn't too happy with, and became very, very ill, and is still suffering from that. So what happened there is things got released out of the fat cells, created this dust storm, a little bit like me trying to clean out my garage with a blower without the doors being open, right? Everything just went everywhere and created other problems. That is a very common complaint, by the way. Well, I did a detox, and then this is what happened. My doctor said that was a healing crisis. No, that's detoxification gone wrong. So, detox is a very big topic. Hormonal support. In hormonal support, chasteberry is so time-honored. I love using chasteberry because what it does in a woman, it rebalances estrogen to progesterone ratio. So it really effectively gets rid of PMS, dysmenorrhea, irregular periods, and it really is a big hitter. And it's an adaptogen. So what that means, it just normalizes, it doesn't do anything beyond. So no weird hormone replacement therapy and all of its horrible risks. It just does it. It's good for you. Thyrotain is a brand new product that Orthomolecular makes, and this one's been a game changer. We've only used this for a short time, but my patients are noticing immediate differences in energy levels, cognition, just brain fog lifting, because the thyroid is being supported in ways that are just very well researched, and it also has a positive effect on the other parts of the HPAT axis. So Immune repair, there's some really neat new things that are happening there. Ultraflora Immune Booster is a new probiotic that is from Denmark and was clinically trialed on medical doctors. At 1 a day, reduced their cold and flu risk for 1 year at 70%. That's a big reduction. That is big immune repair. It creates immunity in the sinuses and the lungs. I also use it for sinus infections and pneumonias, and patients usually respond within days with that. The most powerful probiotic we carry is Probio 225. It's about 7 times as strong as the next nearest one we have. And if nothing is working, we just do a bombing run with this very powerful probiotic to try to reestablish normalcy in the gut, because the gut obviously affects everything. In inflammation, Dr. Charles Sirhan, he works in one of the Ivy League medical schools. He has a team of about 20 scientists. In the last 20 years, has devoted his life to figuring out, sure, we know how inflammation starts up. It's about 32 steps, by the way. I don't know why they made me learn that in school. And then they just kind of drop it. They just kind of assume it just goes away when it resolves itself. It doesn't. The immune system actually has a built-in programming to actively decrease inflammation. So if you overwork out and it takes you 5 days to recover from that, there's something wrong with your inflammation resolvement. Or you did something really stupid. So this also can be seen as, for example, my cat scratched me and 2 weeks later I can still see the scratch. You know, right? It's all the same thing. MS patients, Parkinson's patients, for instance, why don't they heal themselves? Why don't they? It's because they have run out of ammunition to resolve chronic inflammation. Only about 5% at most of our immune system is designed to fight chronic inflammation, because in the history of humankind, chronic inflammation wasn't a topic. It's only been the last 50 to 100 years, folks, that chronic inflammation has been a topic. 95% of our immune system is for acute inflammatory events. So when we get hit by a chronic disease, we run out of the ability to fight it off within months. And that's why something can become chronic. And so Dr. Charles Sirhan figured out what those compounds are. He called them resolvents, and that's in something called SPM Active. He's up for a Nobel Prize for that work, and it is a game changer. Dr. Dale Bredesen highly recommends that in his book also on reversing Alzheimer's. I have seen it be quite effective at things, again, at things that I had trouble with before. So there's that one. In flavonoid is turmeric. We've all heard about turmeric. It's really cool because it's cheap, it's effective, it tastes good. In Erasmus University at the Netherlands, Rotterdam, they thought, you know, how can we make this stuff work even better? Because its absorbability is only about 5%. And so they started cooking up different concoctions and found that if they added about 7% fenugreek and just a tiny bit of a hop extract, they could improve their absorbability by more than 45-fold. So we use this for acute situations whenever we have to knock down inflammation. For repair, and I'm talking about gut repair now, Ultraflora Integrity has been on back order for 2.5 years because of overwhelming demand. Ultraflora Integrity is the first probiotic, again, a game changer here at DBC, that will successfully treat leaky gut syndrome. Before, we could always manage it and even improve it, but this can actually resolve it. And reactivity to food as well as environment decreases very substantially within weeks of using it. GI Replenish is also done at Erasmus University. That's a game changer as well, because GI Replenish essentially has immunoglobulins that's found in the first 3 days of breast milk, and it reprograms a gut. So if a patient comes in with chronic gut issues like IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, that's what we use. In just 6 weeks, it'll increase your good bug count by an average of 1,900%. Of the 9 bad bacteria that was studied, it fully eliminated 8 of them. Find a nutraceutical or find a pharmaceutical that'll do that, right? We're talking multiple events happening throughout the body, and it's so humbling and exciting to watch a patient go through these changes. It lights them up. Collagen is very new. In fact, we don't even have it yet, I don't think. But this is a new form of collagen for repair of joint issues. We have 3 very large studies that prove that it brings back cartilage in a way that is unbelievable and restores gut function. Collagen was a pharmaceutical at one point. That's how it was marketed, on a prescription only. But that patent ran out, so now we can market it as a natural substance because it is all natural. Re-nourish means let's get those vitamins back in there. Let's get the nutrient content up. Let's get the brain fog gone. Let's get the energy up. And I love phytoorganics. I use this every day. 1 little scoop is equal to about 5 to 8 pounds, depending if it's a heaping scoop or not, of organic vegetables and fruits, and it's all organic, and you can feel it in your brain almost immediately. It goes zzz. It's all these nutrients are just flooding you. It's the coolest feeling. Love phytoorganics. Phytomulti is the world's most advanced multiple vitamin. It actually has clinical trials behind it on how it enhances detoxification pathways, it changes genetic expression, it helps prevent things like macular degeneration and all of today's diseases. It's made for today's diseases, and it's shockingly one of the very few vitamins out there that has clinical studies behind it. And last but not least, the epidemic of the United States, unfortunately, insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome. Insugene is a product that re-wakes up the insulin receptors. You'll have less fluctuations, you'll have less belly fat, you'll have your cholesterol change very dramatically. And if you combine that with berberine, which has been able to successfully show a dramatic reduction in overall blood glucose, and it also kills bad bugs, by the way, and it enhances liver function. I can go on and on because usually there's other things. You're going to see a lot of these effects. I covered a lot here, and we have a handout on it somewhere that you're welcome to grab. It's right there by Don. So if you want a copy of that, you may. So in closing, you can see functional medicine has become extremely sophisticated, well-researched, well-published, and is providing hope where there was absolutely no hope, where only disease management was the best thing that we could do. It's an approach that is changing healthcare, and it's you, the social scientists, okay? You're coming into your doctor's offices and asking them questions that they've never heard about, and that's what's forcing change, along with all those other factors that I was talking about. We're also being overwhelmed by chronicity of disease, all these chronic diseases, and our healthcare system simply is not equipped to handle that. This is why functional medicine is not alternative medicine. It is simply medicine taken to the next level. Okay. Pain management and opioid crisis is our next topic. Dr. Kate Leisinger is a very organized, unlike me, right? I'm a bit of an out-of-control train. Dr. Kate Leisinger is a very good teacher, and she's going to tell you exactly how it works in a methodical way. Super important topic. There's a lot of ways that we can now work with pain very effectively in a non-harmful way. So this is your seminar, and I think you'd enjoy that one a lot. Yeah. I believe I'm speaking again in July. But that'll be announced on Facebook. Yeah. Yeah? Good. Thanks so much for being here. You're welcome. Thank you. If you have any questions, you're welcome to pound them away at me. So, anything? Did I stun you into silence? No?
I have a question about the phytoorganics that you were talking about. Is that something that we can take with our vitamins
yes.
in the morning? Or is it
yeah, because it's whole food. Nope, it's not too much. You can almost look at it as a pre-vitamin. So it's a concentrated food, and its research is actually on how it can positively affect your microbiome. That's actually the one big clinical study we have on it. It's also interesting to note that the American Cancer Association put together a list of these are the fruits and vegetables that are very anti-cancerous. And that's what's in phytoganics also. So with all of my cancer patients, we use phytoganics. And it's amazing how it negates side effects from chemo and radiation. Yeah, it's truly amazing. Yeah. Yes?
You mentioned something about a bad food list and a good food list. Where is that list?
Talk to Dawn.
For the Dirty Dozen, is that what?
Yeah, it's on our website
Yeah,
somewhere.
no, I thought you were talking about something else that
Dirty dozen.
during the presentation you mentioned something about some bad foods. And the good foods are just basically whole foods.
Yeah. Well, the bad foods, where do I start, honestly? So anything in a box, you're probably better off eating a box. It's probably more nutritious than the food that's inside of it. If a label... No, I'm giving you a hard time. I should be nicer. If a label has more than 4 ingredients, be very suspicious. If a label has things on it you can't pronounce, don't buy it. If a label has things on it that your great-grandmother wouldn't recognize, don't buy it. Yeah, just when you go in the grocery store, stick to the outside aisles only. That's where the real food is. The aisles of doom and death are right in the middle, right? And especially at the checkout, they have the worst stuff there, right? It's unbelievable. So stick to the outside aisles and pretend you have great grandma on your shoulder. No, I don't recognize that. No, no. So, and you'll be fine. Yeah, good.
Injury recovery fall under pain management for the next seminar?
Say that one more time.
Injury recovery.
Yes, it's going to be a big part of it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's going to be a big part of it. We've got some pretty exciting. I've had to write. I've had to present 3 times on this in medical symposiums, and I had to write 3 blogs for it. They'll call me the pain management expert. It's fascinating because these doctors are so worried about the opioid crisis, because per year now we have more than 50,000 deaths from the opioids, right? And Michigan is really hard hit with this one. And what else can we do about it? And there's so much you can do. So yeah, repair is going to be a big part of that. Yes?
When you have a patient and you do testing on their gut flora, like the bacteria,
Yep.
I was wondering how specific is it? My understanding is some tests go to like the genus level, and some go to species, like biome is out there being talked about.
Yeah.
How specific and how detailed is the
Okay.
testing you
So I've done both. Our knowledge on the human microbiome is not yet complete enough to that full species one. I get pages of it, and honestly that information comes in and we don't yet know what to do with it. We can see if something is balanced or imbalanced, but you can do that better with something called complete digestive stool analysis, and we've done that here for over 20 years, and it's been refined as it goes along. What it does, it starts at the top with salivary enzymes and then measures enzymes and quality of enzymes from the liver, from the pancreas and the stomach, and also inflammatory markers of the gut wall. And the good bacteria gets measured, all the ones we know, so the beneficial bacteria, but also the bad bacteria. And when they find bad bacteria that we know are harmful, they grow them out in petri dishes and they throw more pharmaceutical agents at it, as well as natural agents, to see which one is most effective at treating it. And that's the result I get back. So it gives me a very comprehensive look at the whole gut health, not just the microbiome. And I think you get more information out of that than sending it to Mayo.
Does it pick out fungus and viruses?
Yes. Yep. Yep. Yes.
Do you do homocysteine testing?
Yes. It's very standard. It's almost a must-do in this office. It tells us so much about methylation pathways and glutathione production. Homocysteine is a very underdone test, and it's cheap.
How much does that cost?
It's under 100. If you go to my website and you hit the lab button, you'll see a whole list of all the things that they test. It's very extensive, and just find homocysteine and the prices right next to it. It's a great way to get yourself tested because you get prices that are wholesale, and it's just a fraction of the cost compared to what the ordinary doctors do. Yeah?
If you can prove it.
Well, the way I have it set up is that it's cash, and that's how they've reduced the price very dramatically.
A conventional doctor, you go to him and ask him to do a homocysteine, and he looks
Yeah.
at you with rolled eyes.
Yeah, it's actually I this is about 25 years ago, I asked a cardiologist to do C-reactive protein and homocysteine levels back then, and he refused. He says, unless this doctor can convince me. So I wrote him a letter stating why. He says, well, I don't know about that, but I'll do it for you, and we got the information. He calls me, unbelievably, about 5 years later. He says, you're not going to believe this. I was at this conference, and they were talking about how important these two markers are. And I thought of you immediately, and I just wanted you to let you know that. And I thought, wow, that's really cool that he called me. But yeah, the information is out there. Yes?
Do you do ferritin iron test? Ferritin
Yes.
test?
Yeah. Ferritin is one of the more important energy molecules. And its levels go abnormal before autoimmune disease hits, so it's a really good predictive marker as well. It also is a good predictor for malabsorption syndrome. So ferritin is a good one.
So you can get it finding your
Yep, it's there as well.
All right, and then what about, can you say that statistic again about telomere length with exercise?
Oh, yeah. So to go into a little more unwanted detail, they chose buttock skin as their marker because buttock skin. Because it's often covered, not damaged by sun, so it's a really good standard thing, and they measure telomere length, which tells you age of the cell. Yeah. Then they took these non-exercisers and they exercised 30 minutes, 5 days out of the week. Okay, whatever they were capable of with a trainer. And then remeasured it 3 months later, and they found that the telomere length the biological age of those cells had been reduced by 18 years on average, which is absolutely shocking. Yeah.
Just from 3 months of exercise?
That's it. No diet change even. Yeah.
So it's 30 minutes, 5 times a week.
Yeah, that was it. You know, I'm really jealous of these non-exercisers. I would love to just do that, but yeah. It's just like, you know, I have patients come in and they drink pop and they go to McDonald's, and I just tell them, at the very least, stop the pop, and McDonald's only twice a week. And they show incredible change just with that. So it makes me a little jealous because, you know, when you're more closer to optimum health, it takes a lot of work to get another. Never mind. Yes.
What do you see with, like in the fitness industry, like the high intensity people who are like 5-6 days a week of whatever?
Yeah, CrossFit. Let's go CrossFit because right, Luminaire's here. I've been there, right, and I'm right now doing CrossFit-ish kind of things as well. And I notice a lot of the people that are doing this, they have a gut. They're super strong. Their color is gray. So they're fit but not healthy, they're undernourished. Yeah? And that is because, one, they might be overtrained. Number two, they're undernourished, so their detoxification pathways aren't working well. And all the damage they accumulate from exercise, because exercise produces damage. That's how, through a repair process, you get stronger, right? Those damaging chemicals that you produce with exercise is not being eliminated and instead stored in fat cells, which gives them that gray mottled appearance. Yeah, you with me so far? That creates oxidative stress. So when you look at professional athletes, and I remember so many of the professional athletes in soccer, it might be in Dutch, I remember that guy, and you look at them now and they're old before their time. They still look fit, a lot of them. They got the smoker's face, right? All the wrinkles, and that's because they had too much oxidative stress. Mm-hmm. So
what type of exercise do you recommend then?
well, that's really individual, isn't it?
Okay.
But one thing is for sure, last summer I published a seminar on athletic fitness, and I'm going to do one probably again this summer. And if you're into long distance anything, whether it's bicycle ride or running or swimming or anything, you should really be aware of your heart rate. Because if your heart rate, and I had a formula on that at that point, and it was this, that you take 180 minus your age. So let's say you're 50, right? And 180 minus 50 is 130. And if you're really fit, you can add 5 to it. If you're not fit, you subtract 5 to it. So let's say you're really fit, that's 135. That is your maximum heart rate for sustained periods. Okay, that's where you should be training at. And the very highest level athletes have gotten themselves to, at first, very difficult, because it takes a while to get there, because you know, everybody's passing you. You know how that goes with your ego. But gradually on, you become more and more efficient because there's no chemical damage occurring at that level. And the body recovers faster, and you get fitter and fitter until finally, at that heart rate, you can outperform most people and your own times for sure. Okay, so this has been proven over and over. It's really solid research. It's just not everybody does it, because who wants to do that for a year before you adapt to that, right? So for professional athletes that have done this, they've had to take a year off, essentially. Okay, now this 135 wouldn't count during race day. It wouldn't, and it also doesn't count for interval training. I'm talking about sustained over half an hour kind of exercise. Does that make sense? Does that kind of answer that? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, beautiful. We're going to wrap it up. It's a beautiful day. Let's get out there.